Merry meet, my lovelies. My name is Rhiannon D. Elton, and I am going to walk you through today your writing workshop to get you ready to participate in the Kids4Kids anthology. It's going to be an uplifting thing. Sorry, I can speak. I'm an author. I write words, I don't speak. And so what we're going to be doing today is walking you through all of the steps that help you craft the story of your dreams, the idea that's been buzzing around in your head. Not only are we going to look at this worksheet here, which you can fill out. You will have a digital copy of this. All you have to do is email me or Kathy, or she will attach it below. But we're going to be looking at the plot and the characters of your story to make sure that they are solid. And then we're going to be looking at how you can edit it yourself and create more vivid detail. Then after that, we'll be doing the editing to make sure that it's clean and crisp. And then finally, some reflections that you can do to make sure your next story is even better. So let's get started. Today, what we're going to be looking at is a lot of in-depth tricks that I like to use as an author. And I want you to make sure that you've got something you can write on as we speak, or have captions on this, download the transcript, or pause it whenever an activity comes up, because I want you to get the most out of this. And even if it takes an hour more than what you were thinking, you're going to make a lot out of this. And the reason I know that is because I use these techniques myself. I'm an author of 10 fantasy detective novels. Hang on a second. So these are my 10 books that I have written, and I wrote these in about 6 years, and that's because I found the techniques that I'm going to teach to you today. But let's start at the beginning, because we have to begin at the start. And you may already have an idea bouncing around in your head, or something you've even written down already, but we're going to put that just to the side. We're going to work on that. We're going to have a look at the key pieces first. The first thing that I want you to do is a little exercise that will help get your creative juices going if you don't already have a story, or if you feel like your story just doesn't have that right pizzazz yet. What I want you to do is think to yourself, what kind of magical ability or sci-fi tool or power would your character have? What would it be? When we were doing the workshop live, we had some fantastic choices. One of the first ones that we got was invisibility, and that was very cool. And then I posed the question, are they able to turn their invisibility on or off? Because the original Invisible Man couldn't turn his power off. Also, with your invisibility, is it affected by your emotions or your stress levels or by something around you? So for instance, what would be your kryptonite? What would be the thing that stops your ability from working right when it's happening? The next one that we had was a very cool one, and it was the ability to talk to animals. Now, I love that one. I love that one so much. As someone who has 4 cats, 2 dogs, 4 chickens, and a conure bird somewhere in the house at any stage, I love animals. But animals are all very different. And I think that different animals not only think about things differently, but they would also speak differently if they could speak to us. For instance, chickens are pretty stupid. They're delightful and I love them. They're cuddly and they're friendly, but I do think they're pretty stupid. And so they're not going to be holding clever conversation with you. They probably don't have the best memories if you're trying to find information about what's recently happened. It'll just be in that immediate moment. That's all they're thinking about. And at the most, they'll be like, oh, sun comes out, we get food. Yum, 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 cluck, cluck, yum, yum. Or it could be really simple, like seed, sun, grass, bucket. But if you've got a dog, they will be thinking very differently. If you've just arrived home and you need some information from your dog, like, oh, did my parcel get delivered today because it has some magical ingredients in there? They might be, oh my gosh, you're home. This is the best thing ever. Oh my gosh, it's the best day ever. I don't care. You only left half an hour ago. Oh my God, I'm so happy. But you probably won't be able to get the information out of them because they'll be so excited in the moment about what you've got for them, or the fact that you've come home. Whereas your cat might be a bit more egocentric. It might be like, oh, package? I don't know anything about a package. All I know is that I sat by the window and the sun kissed my fur, and then suddenly I was cold. A cloud had passed across the sun. So sad. And that sort of thing is what you want to look at when you introduce your powers. What makes them go wonky? This then brings us into making the best characters you could possibly make. The first thing you need to know about your character is, what do they want? You can find out their name, their age, their gender, how they look, all of that. That's not a problem. But what do they want? What do they really want? Do they want friends? Do they want a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a they friend? Do they want to escape from a terrible life? Do they want to save their sibling? Do they want to save the world? Do they just want to get back to playing video games and they can't stand being at school any longer, so they're going to trigger their invisibility power and see if they can sneak away without being seen? But then what goes wrong? So what do they want? It could be in the moment. It could be a long-term thing. And it's good to write both of those things down, especially if you're one day hoping to write a series. But for this, we want a short, punchy short story. So we want it to be somewhere up to 3,000 words. That's the maximum. And so that's what we're working with. So first thing, what do they want? The second thing, what are they willing to do to get it? For instance, one of my favorite ones, as a fantasy detective author, I love Sherlock Holmes. I love him so much. A lot of my books, like my main character, his name is Wolflock. I based him off a teenage Sherlock Holmes. And so for me, I think about, okay, so Sherlock Holmes, he wants justice. He wants to solve the case. He wants to feel clever and he wants to feel challenged. So he's only taking cases that make him feel very challenged, but he's also looking at how he can solve the case in a bit of a grandiose way. Like he wants a bit of a fanfare about him solving the case. And Agatha Christie does the same thing with Poirot and a lot of her other characters too. They call everyone into the room and then they have the big reveal. And that established the mystery genre since it started. It's been a phenomenal thing and it's so much fun to have that nearly a party that is the big reveal. How cool is that? So what do they want? They want justice. They want to reveal the big mystery in a theatrical way. What are they willing to do to get it? Now, Sherlock Holmes is not always prepared to lie. Sometimes he does though, but he prefers to be very blunt and tell the truth. In only one book was he willing to kill to get what he wanted. And that was to keep everyone safe from Moriarty. And in that, he also threatened his own life. So in the particular book, the Reichenbach Falls, he grabs onto Moriarty and he throws them both over the waterfall and plunges them possibly onto lethal rocks below. So not normally is Sherlock Holmes willing to kill. And then you have, what are they not willing to do? I think that rules out a lot of things. So for instance, one of my childhood stories that I wrote was about me going into the backyard and finding an egg. So in year 1 I loved dinosaurs. I loved them so much. And I went into the backyard in my story and I found a dinosaur egg. I found a Brontosaurus egg or a Stegosaurus egg or a T-Rex egg, and I wanted to raise that baby dinosaur as my pet. In that story, I was absolutely not willing to kill anyone for it. I wasn't willing to steal anything either. So in the story, to try and feed the dinosaur what it needed, I needed money so that I could go to the butcher or I could go to the fruit and veg store and I could buy all of the dinosaur food, because there's no dinosaur food shops. You can't just go to Pet Barn and go and get your dinosaur food from there, because that doesn't suit dinosaurs. So I was willing to research to find out what the dinosaurs needed to eat. I was willing to work a part-time job after school. I was willing to try and sneak away from school to go back to my dinosaur. And I was willing to avoid my bedtime so that I could continue to look after my dinosaur. So what is your character willing to do? What is the maximum that they're willing to do or not willing to do to achieve what they want? In real life, we often see people that want something but aren't prepared to do anything to actually get it done, like writers. There are so many people I know who they would make fantastic authors, but they're not willing to let anyone edit their work or to go through the steps of publishing to become a published author. They're not even willing to go and send their manuscript to anyone who could judge it, like a publisher. You can send it to Hatchet or Penguin or Random House or Hawkeye or a small publisher. They're not willing to do that. They think that somehow magically they're going to get discovered just by having their manuscript sitting on their computer. So they're not prepared to do what needs to be done in order to achieve their dream, to achieve their motivation. And that's a really powerful thing to know. The last thing is one of the most fun things, and it's what is your character's flaw? So we've looked at what are they willing to do, what do they want, what are they willing to do to get it, and what is their flaw? That often comes under what are they afraid of? For these people, so for the authors, they are afraid of rejection. They're afraid of criticism, all right? And at the end of this, we're going to find some ways to help you overcome that if you're suffering from that, because I want you to be successful. So they're afraid of that, so much so that they can't pursue their dreams because they haven't overcome that yet. Then we have me writing my dinosaur story. My flaw was that I tried to do everything myself. I tried to do everything myself as a 7-year-old girl, and there was it's not even legal age to get a job. How can I look after a dinosaur? That's not going to happen. And so that flaw of not asking for help, not relying on any friends, not thinking I had any friends, and not telling my mum about it, thinking I had to keep it secret, that would have led to a much more exciting story that I would have known how to finish. So I never actually finished that one. And then finally, Sherlock Holmes's fatal flaw is his craving for that theatrics, but also he often thinks he's too clever for everyone else, and he will miss something simple because it's not the clever thing. He will also often be too rude or too obnoxious to people around him. You see that a lot in the TV show versions of Sherlock Holmes. Or sometimes he doesn't, I think one of his biggest fatal flaws is that he doesn't openly share what the clues are because he's craving those theatrics. So you have what your character wants, what they are willing to do to get it, and what they are afraid of. And so that then comes under their flaw. I want you to write those things down about your main character. All right. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that. Pause the video, take some time, write that down, and then when you come back, we'll move on to the next step. All right, pause the video now. Are you back yet? Did you write down your 3 things that your character needs to do? So your character's motivation, their challenge, so what they want, what they're willing to do to get it, and then what they're afraid of. Write down those 3 things. If you haven't, make sure you pause and come back. But now we're going to jump straight into the next activity. I want you to do that for your villain. So who is the villain of your story? Who is the biggest block to your character's success? So your character has to get over their own stuff. So what they're afraid of. They have to get over that, and that's going to be their biggest growth. But who in their circle or who in their environment is stopping them from achieving their goals? And you look at it like this. What does that villain want? Why do they want to interrupt our hero's progress? What is that villain willing to do to get it? It's often something more dramatic or egregious than what our protagonist is prepared to do. Often, you'll see someone like Batman. He is not prepared to kill. That is the main thing. Batman does not kill, all right? That is his staple. That is his solid. He will incapacitate people, and he will, send them all to Arkham, but he's not going to kill anyone. His villains, though, are all prepared to kill people. Like, that is their baseline, and that's what makes them so much worse than Batman. So, what is your villain prepared to do to achieve their goal that is going to block or is going to upset the main character? And also, what is your villain afraid of? A common one is a high school scenario or a school scenario where your character has a goal in school. Maybe it's to get onto a sports team. Maybe it's to get onto an acting team or become like the lead actor in a play, the lead musician in the orchestra, that sort of thing, all right? Like the top of the class for their magical class, all right? So they want to do that, and they are trying to study hard, so they're prepared to study, they're prepared to sleep less, to study at lunches, to not play games. They want to get that top of the class. They're afraid of not getting the top of the class because maybe they failed the rest of everything else, and they need to get top marks in this one assignment, otherwise they'll be expelled for terrible grades. Or maybe having this assignment done will finally give them access to bringing back a long lost parent, or give them access to a baby dinosaur and everything they need to look after it. So think about it like that. Now, the villain, their motivation is to stop the main character from getting what they want. They want to stop the main character from succeeding in getting top of the class. They are prepared to steal. They are prepared to lie. They are prepared to cause injury to the main character and cause sinister plots. So maybe they're prepared to trip them down some stairs, which could put them in the hospital. Maybe they're prepared to cast a terrible curse on them that will end them in the hospital wing as well. Maybe they're prepared to lie and to send in a doppelganger or dress up like the main character so that they can go in and do the test very badly on their behalf. So they could be prepared to do a lot of terrible things. Maybe the villain is not prepared to kill the main character. They don't want to do that. They know they'd get in trouble for that, and they know they'd probably go to prison for that. They're not prepared to risk their own grades for that, so they're not going to stop their own study, and maybe they even sneak in and study with the main character and have tricked them into being their friend, but they've been giving them fake information the whole time. Ooh, juicy. And what are they afraid of? Maybe the villain is being blackmailed to do this. Maybe it's they are worried that their family will disown them if they don't keep top of the class. And if this main character gets top of the class, then they'll stay at the school, which the villain doesn't care about. But then the villain won't be top of the class, and that means a lot to them. So what means a lot to the villain? Why are they afraid to have something happen? What are they afraid of? So write down your 3 answers for your villain. What do they want? What are they prepared to do to get it? And what are they afraid of? Do that and come back. So pause the video now, come back and let me know what your 3 answers are. All right. Are you ready? You've got your villain and you've got your hero, and that's great. We are now going to look at a 3-act structure. So, characters aside, characters are cool, they're sitting there, they're ready to go. We're going to look at your story plot to make sure that you hit all of the right beats and that you can find success in your writing, because I think this is what held me up and stopped me from succeeding and stopped me from finishing all of these stories, because I didn't know how. I just didn't know where it was meant to go from there. And so what I like to do is jump online and either find the hero's journey specifically, or if I'm writing for a different genre, like romance or mystery, I will jump online and I will find, particularly for me, in the Novel Factory, the outlines of all of these stories. Now, I'm pretty sure you can get the Novel Factory notes for free. Those notes will give you exactly what you need to finish your story plots, okay? But we're going to look at the hero's journey. So I'm going to get you to start to put your character in their world, all right? In the next workshop, we're going to do a lot on world building and how that can be incorporated into your story. But for now, we're going to look at a rough plot for the hero's journey, all right? So let me bring up my note. The hero's journey is used in so many different books and so many different movies. Like, it's such a common one that we often just fall into it naturally. We'll write it naturally because it's such a common one to do. And it's a fun one to do as well. So the way that it goes is you have your hero. They are in what is considered to be their ordinary world. So if we use the example of Aragon, one of my absolute favorites, we also have the Dragon Keeper, or Dragon's Keeper. It's by, Carol Wilkinson. It's set in China. Oh my gosh, it's so good. You can also use the Hunger Games, Harry Potter, most fiction for young adults and for kids. Del Toro Quest is another one. So all of these ones all use the hero's quest, which is really important to know. So we start off like Aragon or like Dragon's Keeper. We're in their ordinary world. Their ordinary world is not entirely comfortable, but it's what they know. So that ordinary world is like in Aragon, he's got his uncle, his cousin, and they're on a farm, and he goes off hunting, and then he comes back and he fights with the butcher, that sort of thing. He knows that. That's what he expects. So he's going to come back and he's going to fight with the butcher Sloane, and he is going to then just go back home and continue on helping out with the farm. But he doesn't feel like there's enough. He doesn't feel like that's his real place to be. That's the same for The Hobbit and for Luke Skywalker in A New Hope. So both of them start with someone in their position and they're not entirely comfortable. Bilbo gives the impression that he might be fully comfortable, but he's not. He does have that craving for adventure, which is why Gandalf is able to get him to come on this adventure in the first place. So You start with the ordinary world. It's what they know. They may not be entirely comfortable with it, and they may moan a bit about it as well, but it's what they know. Then there is a call to adventure. Now, this could be Aragon finding the egg, all right? They often refuse the call to adventure to start with. So in the case of Star Wars, Luke Skywalker goes and meets Obi-Wan. He meets the droids. And they say, oh, well, we have to go and find Obi-Wan Kenobi. And Luke Skywalker is like, no, you're meant to help us find mushrooms and forage for stuff. So that's what you're going to do. And then R2-D2 won't give it up. And so he's like, all right, I'll take you to Obi-Wan Kenobi. We'll get this sorted. Maybe he can reprogram you and you'll behave better. So that's him refusing the call, especially when he meets Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he's like, me, a Jedi? Absolutely not. I'm not doing that. But then he goes home. So he's not only had his call to adventure, then refused the call, and then he meets the mentor. So the mentor in this is Obi-Wan Kenobi. In Aragon, it's Brom. In Dragon's Keeper, it is the dragon himself. Then things have to change. Something happens, and they have a choice. They can stay in a worse world, worse off than what they were, or they can cross the threshold. They can start their journey into change. What that means and what that looks like is in Aragon. Now, please, if you don't want spoilers, I'm sorry, you may have to watch a whole other video, but I'm going to give you spoilers for this and Star Wars and probably Dragon Keeper as well. So in Aragon, you cross the threshold with him when he returns home and his uncle has been killed. And he's been killed by soldiers. And they were looking for the dragon. They were looking for the dragon's egg, and they were looking for the dragon. And so Aragon has to make a choice here. He either gives up his dragon, or he goes off with Brom and finds out how to be a dragon rider. Imagine having that and giving up that opportunity. So many people have, and so many people do. They stay mediocre because they're afraid and they're not able to overcome the fear. And so they stay average. And that is what our hero does not do. They choose to cross that threshold. For Aragon, it is leaving with Saphira and Brom. For the main character in The Dragon Keeper, it is her fighting back and helping the dragon escape from her terrible master. And for Luke Skywalker, it is going off to train with Obi-Wan Kenobi after he finds his aunt and uncle set on fire and they're burnt. And it's a terrible scene. But that first crossing of the threshold is the choice to leave their old life behind. Then they go through tests, they find allies, they search within themselves, and they discover that fear that we spoke about right at the start is holding them back. They go through a big ordeal and they get a reward. Now the key is they think they've trained enough. Your character will be looking to their mentor for education and for lessons in how to become the best that they can be. And they'll think, and they'll be overconfident with it. Aragon does this when he goes and rescues the elf girl, which actually ends up leading to Brom actually being killed. And so they leave and they find something and they're like, oh, I'm the best. I've done the training. I can absolutely do it. And then all of a sudden, none. They're knocked to the floor. Everything is pulled out from under them and they realize that training was not nearly enough for them to conquer their enemy. So they go back and they train harder and they get wiser, and they overcome the fear that's been holding them back the entire time. And then they finally go back and they overcome that huge obstacle that's been holding them back the entire time. Sometimes that takes several books to get to, but in this, we're going to do it in 3,000 words. So after that, and even if you just give the promise that they're going to go up and try again, that is uplifting enough, and that is the whole aim of the stories that you're going to be writing. So they defeat the evil, and then the last part is they go back. They find the road back home. They've been renewed. They've been reborn as something greater than they once were. For Harry Potter, it was being a wizard and then finding out that he has power over Voldemort, solving the mystery of the Philosopher's Stone, and knowing that he was going to take that stone but not use it, which was Dumbledore's entire intent. The whole way through the book, that people that wanted the stone but not to use it were the only ones that could access it. Very powerful magic. They return home with all of their new powers, with their new knowledge, and with their new treasures, something that will benefit them and maybe their communities so much. But they've come back and they are changed. Home looks very different to them now. It might look too small. It might look too quaint. It might look exactly as they need it, but it's now a balm. It was something that they didn't feel gratitude for in the past, and now they've come back and they're like, oh, this is home. Oh, the absolute magic of the hero's journey. So that is often for adventure stories, and it works like magic. It is such a good plot format, and it's difficult to suggest another one because it is such a good solid one, and it's one that I recommend you practice. So go online, look up the hero's journey, find one of the pictures, and then for all of the 12 points that they list, I want you to write a key scene, or even just a sentence that describes the key scene that your character is going to go through that will follow the hero's journey. All right? Also, with the addition of your mentor, I want you to make sure that you know what their motivation is, what they're willing to do to get that, and what they are afraid of. For Brom, so for Aragorn's mentor, he wanted so badly to have Aragorn turn into a good dragon rider. He was so proud of him for that. He was willing to die for Aragorn, and he was so frightened that Aragorn would choose to be an evil dragon rider. This is not clear in the books when you read it, because Brom is very even, and he's like, you can choose whatever path you want. But in his heart of hearts, Brom would have been devastated if Aragorn had turned into an evil dragon rider. Then we have our plot, and what I want you to do now is to stop, look up the hero's journey, or write down these points, then pause the video and fill them in. So we look at part 1, so act 1, number 1, ordinary world. Number 2, call to adventure. Number 3, refuse the call. Number 4, meet the mentor. Act 2, number 5, cross the first threshold. Number 6, tests, allies, and enemies. Number 7, innermost cave. This is where they have to go back and find what's gone wrong and figure out why their training wasn't enough. Number 8, the ordeal. So this is the big climax. Number 9, the reward. So what their spoils are at the end. Act 3, the road back. So finding their way back home. 11 is titled Resurrection, but that is who they are new as a person. And then number 12 for Act 3, return with the elixir. So they come back home with their new knowledge, new power, new items and treasures. So we've done all of that. I want you to pause now after you've written those down, or rewind it so you can write them down and fill out just one sentence for each of those sections, and then we'll carry on to the next bit. All right, now that you're done, which I hope you are, it is always very important to do the activities because you'll get them stuck in your head more and more effectively by doing them. Now, I want you to write your story. Once you have written your story, what we're going to do is go over the vivid details. So as you're writing, keep in mind that you will go back over and you are going to use the 5 senses to go over your story, figure out what happened, and how you can make it more rich if you've got the words to be able to use. Okay, so if you've got your word count a bit low, you can put these in and make it more impactful. So, what can your readers see? What do you want them to see? What don't you want them to see? What can they smell? What can they feel? How does the air feel? What is the weather like? And all of the senses involve them in your story. Can they taste the air, that it's so thick? Play with these. This is one of the most fun parts of going over your story and inserting all of these things. Then I want you to look at your verbs. So look at your moving words and your doing words, and I want you to take out anything that has an ly. Lys are very weak in writing. Now, for each paragraph, you can have one ly, okay? Because sometimes writing is hard and it's just easy to put an ly in. But instead of saying, he ran quickly, all right? Say he sprinted. Much better, much better. That's what you're aiming for. Then the last part is you want to focus on showing and not telling. So don't tell me the forest is scary or a scary forest, okay? Tell me that there were dark shadows flicking between the trees as if something was following them. That everything was eerily silent. Oh, I used an ly, but that's my one for the paragraph. Everything was eerily silent except for the odd crunch that seemed to follow them on the dead leaves. Ooh, already getting spooky. I love it. So don't tell me how to feel. Make me feel that way with your words. So that will be the part that you do your first edit with. When you are doing your proper edits though, I like to do a process of 5. We look at word edits for spelling and grammar and read through them, understand them as you go. Don't just click do. Then I want you to read your story out loud or get a friend to read it out loud back to you, because that way you will hear things and you'll hear the flow of your words and you'll know whether or not a sentence needs to be longer or shorter or if it makes sense in that space. Reading it out loud stops it from being just words on a screen or words on a page as well. And then I want you to take a break. You can use Pro Writing Aid or Grammarly to perfect your editing, but take a break and then have one last read over it out loud, or have a word read it out loud to you, just so that everything is nice and clean and tight. We'll go over editing in another video, and we'll go in depth on things that often slip past us and ways to strengthen your writing in our next workshop. Once you've done all of that, you are ready to submit your book. I'm so proud of you. You've made it all the way to the end here, and now you're going to master your characters, your plot, adding detail into your books and your editing. I'm very proud of you and I can't wait to read what you've written. Make sure you send it through to the Kids4Kids link for the book, and I will see you in the next workshop. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again.